Now, you come from a golfing family. Keegan comes from a golf family. How old was he when you met him?
I want to say Keegan was, I think, a junior when I first met him. He first started playing in our tournaments. So he was living in Vermont. He moved to Hopkinton. His dad was took the head professional job at Hopkinton Country Club in Massachusetts, which consequently meant that he was going to play on a team with a superstar, can't miss PGA Tour player in my estimation, John Curran. And those two guys quickly became best friends. Keegan was a year older than John, so when he came to Hopkinton, he was a junior in high school, and John was a sophomore. He played a little bit with us, and then he played more as a senior when John was a junior. John was one of the best junior players in the country. He was our best player for 3 years for the Challenge Cup, and John was one of the best junior players in the country. He got beat in the semifinals of the U.S. Junior as a junior in between his junior and senior year of high school. And that was at the Olympic Club. You could see that Keegan was gonna be, once he was full throttle and all in, it was, look out, this guy could be something else. I knew it. Um,
Well,
but
what do you think? What do you what gave it away that he was going to be something else? I mean, he was getting beat by his teammate, and I'm not saying Curran was obviously great. He was your number
yeah,
one. Was he keeping up with him? Was it the distance? Or is
I
there an
think that
era?
I think his distance was one, but I think, there's also the variable of his competitiveness. I think really, listen, he hits the ball a long way, right? And I mean, that's a game that we live in now, right? It's even more prevalent now that you need to hit the ball far. And the courses are all set up. I've been listening for a while. The USGA strayed away from, their textbook setup, and they went to, um, you know, setting it up for bombers, right? They wanted to have the Tigers of the world and the Phils of the world who don't necessarily hit it that straight. They wanted them to be, they knew it was good for TV, it was good for golf to have those guys. And I think the courses now are set up. On the tour, they're certainly set up for guys who hit the ball further, and even for the major championships, that they're geared a little bit more towards guys that hit the ball
So
further,
he
right?
was always one of the longest.
Yeah, he was definitely longer than most of the players. I mean, just having the pedigree of having a family that came from the golf piece, I think, that kind of led a little bit to my thinking. He definitely was competitive. He wanted to beat John. He couldn't have had a better mark than John. It really, John's work ethic and whatnot. Keegan had similar work ethic, so the two of those guys were just grinding together. And that's the one thing. I mean, it's hard for a lot of junior golfers, I think, to find somebody that kind of matches them as far as their abilities or they're close to one another. And they also have the same work ethic, it's kind of want to do the same thing. And those two guys, they spent a ton of time together. And, initially John was pushing Keegan to get better, and then and then it flipped, right? And Keegan was instrumental in John really getting a PGA Tour card. I mean, I think, John saw that he was capable of doing it. And then I think in addition to that, Keegan exposed him to some players that were playing on the PGA Tour that were really good players. And John started playing games with them, and he was like, wait a minute. He's like, I should be out here. Like, I'm just as good as these guys, so. But I mean, he's a perfect example of what I'm talking about when it comes to professional golf. I mean, almost won the Puerto Rico Open, which is an off event for the PGA Tour, off week event, meaning I can't remember what the opposite event was that was being played.
Still hard.
Yeah, right. Almost won that, got beaten in the playoff, and then really most notably got beaten Nicklaus's tournament, the Memorial. Buddy McGirt, he beat him in a playoff, right? I mean, and you wonder, well, what would John be doing right now if he won that playoff? It's hard to say because I don't even know if I don't know if McGirt right now is even playing, right? And it just goes to show you how hard the game of golf is. I always encourage people to look at um to look at the world rankings and what were they 5 years ago compared to what they are now. It's almost always a completely different list of names. I mean, there might be 10 or 15 guys that consistently stay on that list over like a 5 year period, right? Not even a 10, right? It's hard to stay relevant in this game. There's just a whole nother wave of guys that are coming up the ladder. And,
Right.
I think,
You're there, Mark.
yeah. And I think what happens is some of these guys, I don't want to say they get complacent, but they know that they can keep a card, right? Or they think they can keep a card. And sometimes they get a family, and sometimes they don't want to make the same sacrifices,
Yeah.
and that same commitment that they were making in the past. And then oftentimes there's injuries, right?